So today's topic will be modern.
Professor, I couldn't able to see the screen. Only the black. The screen is full of black.
Yes, I will share the screen
Yeah.
in a second. I'll share the screen now. Thank you. And today our topic will be modern cryptography. And to talk about cryptography, we first need to understand what is it that we want to achieve. So let's say we have some message, a secret message. And what we want to do is we want to change this message in such a way that when we send it over some network which is not secure, for example, I don't know, through Wi-Fi, we send it encrypted such that an eavesdropper, it's a person who is listening to something that they shouldn't be listening. If eavesdropper reads the message, he reads these symbols and he doesn't know what the real message is. But at the other end, the person who receives the message, that person can actually decode the message and get the original text back. So previously, in the last lesson, we talked about these letter substitution algorithms like ROT13, Caesar's Cipher, and also Enigma machine. And by the way, these parties are often called for A, for person that is, for example, sending the message, A is often called Alice. And person B, who is receiving the message, is oftentimes called Bob. So you will see it in some literature talking about cryptography. And the person who is eavesdropping is oftentimes called Eve. Okay, so these people have real names. Just fun fact. So, and here is the idea. In order for Bob to be able to decode the message, he has to know two things about the exchange. The first thing is, what is the encryption algorithm? You know, in what way is the message encrypted? Is it just written from back to forth, or how is it done? And the second thing is he needs to know the password. And in cryptography, the password is called key. So here's the idea. When this computer networking started, people oftentimes concentrated on the algorithm, you know, how to encrypt the messages. For example, I take the message and I add 1 to every letter, so the text will be changed. Or maybe I just swap the letters in with their places. So I put, you know, letters in different locations, and that is my encryption algorithm. And the mistake is that I would think that my algorithm is a secret, so the eavesdropper doesn't know the algorithm. So the eavesdropper cannot decode the message. Okay, so if I don't tell anyone how I mix the letters, what is the algorithm? Is it mixing the letters, or is it adding 1 to every letter, or something else? If Alice and Bob keep encryption algorithm a secret, then this encryption system would be impossible to break. But it turns out that cryptanalysis actually is very good at figuring out the encryption algorithm. Okay, so if I come up with some secret method of encrypting texts, eavesdropper can just collect the messages, the ciphertext. So I'll just write it down also. So the message that we are sending is called message or plain text. So plain text is plain text as written. So a secret message is the plain text. And this encrypted text is called cipher text. Cipher text. Or, sorry, sometimes I'm being mixed up. Ciphertext. Let's check out. Yeah, so I wrote it correctly. So the problem is that if you run some statistics on these secret messages on some secret algorithms, oftentimes it turns out that you can find some linear transformation between the secret message and the ciphertext. So cryptanalysts, they just collect these messages, the ciphertext, and then they try to find some linear or maybe non-linear transformation through some statistics and algebra. And in most cases, it is actually possible to figure out the algorithm that is used. So what you need to remember is that encryption algorithm, you should never invent your own encryption algorithm, because most probably it will be broken pretty easily if people want to. So do not come up with your own encryption algorithm. Instead, what the world is doing right now, they are using public algorithms. So public algorithms where people come up with encryption method and then they deliberately publish this method so that every eavesdropper can try to break it. And if it's broken, then it's good. You know, the earlier the eavesdropper breaks the algorithm, the better, because you don't really want, you know, to sell 1 million devices with a poor encryption algorithm, and then eavesdropper figures out how to break the algorithm and basically steals all the information. So you want to first put the algorithm in public, then you want people to try to break it. When they succeed, you're actually happy about it. So don't invent your own encryption algorithms. There are these encryption scientists, mathematicians, and programmers who are coming up with new algorithms. They also test them, try to break them, and verify them. And when successful encryption algorithm is found, it is usually made public and everybody can use it. Okay, so don't think that you can come up with your own very smart encryption algorithm. If you could, you would be making millions of dollars selling it. So actually, what all of these algorithms are based on are the secret keys. So algorithm is known, but it allows you to come up with your password. So the password determines the strength of your encryption system. So for example, Alice and Bob first agree on the password, on the key. The key is long, and then they use a public algorithm and they do encryption and decryption. And Eve, the eavesdropper, knows what algorithm is being used, but since Eve doesn't have the key, she cannot really decode the message and figure out what is being sent. And I'll just give you, so that we're not talking in air, I'm going to give you some names of public encryption algorithms, and they are the following: AES, Advanced Encryption Standard. Then we also have RSA. Then we also have, actually these two are the most important ones, which are used nowadays. And some older obsolete algorithms are, for example, DES, and also I think Blowfish is also old. So, maybe three are enough. So everything is based on the key. Now, what the encryption algorithms want to do is they want this ciphertext to look as random as possible. So ciphertext, I'll just write it in words. Ciphertext needs to look as random ones and zeros. So there wouldn't be any arithmetic that you could use to linearly figure out the original message. Ciphertext should look like just random ones and zeros. And one of the primitives that is, so one of the goals would be the following. I'll just tell it to you and you can memorize it. Actually, the tool that is being used in cryptography is XOR binary function. So do you know what is XOR? It is exclusive OR. So we have, for example, A and B, 2 bits A and B. And what happens if we do XOR on them? XOR is a mathematical function on binary bits. So we have A00, B A1, B0, A0, B1, and A1 and B1. So the XOR is calculated in the following. XOR is if inputs are the same, the output is 0. If inputs are different, the output is 1. Or in other words, if one and not the other is high, then output is 1. If both are high or low, the output is 0. So XOR 0 XOR 0 is 0, 1 XOR 0 is 1, 0 XOR 1 is also 1, and 1 XOR 1 is 0. So OR would be 0, 1, 1, 1, XOR is 0, 1, 1, 0. So this arithmetic binary operation is used in cryptography, and it can be interpreted in several ways. So this is basically a definition of XOR. So this is XOR function. You have 0 XOR 0 is 0, 1 XOR 1 is 0, and if the inputs are different, then the output is 1. I will write the same thing, but in a little bit different manner. So what happens if we have input 1, 0, 1, 0, and the output will, so A will be 1, 0, 1, 0, and B will be 0, 0, 1, 1. And let's do XOR on them. So again, 0 XOR 1 is 1. 1 XOR 1 is 0. 0 XOR 0 is 0. And 1 XOR 0 is 1. Just like in this table. And another way to describe this situation is So if A is like the base input and B is some kind of operator that is performed on A, we can see that in this B, when B bit is 1, A is flipped to the opposite side, to the opposite bit. So where B is 1, A is changed to the opposite. So from 0, it changed to 1. Where B was 1, here A is 1 is flipped to 0. When B is 0, A is copied without the changes. So if I write A equals A XOR B, and XOR symbol is this circle with a plus inside. If I write A equals A XOR B, basically it means where B bits are 1, flip them to the opposite, and where B bits are 0, don't change them, okay? So this is another way to describe XOR. So XOR is also used to flip bits to opposite position, to change zeros to ones and to change ones to zeros, okay? And now let's look at how we could use it in cryptography. And because XOR is one of the grand primitives of cryptography. So I will put these pictures here. Maybe I'll squeak them a little bit closer together, like this. And now let's look at the following concept. Maybe I'll just make a new window. Let's look at the following concept. In the previous lesson, I told you that the strongest password in the world is one-time pad. One-time pad is a string of ones and zeros that you only use once, okay? And you obtain it by doing something really, really random. I don't know, for example, flipping a perfect coin or some other methods to obtain random numbers. But generally, you would just create a random stream of ones and zeros. I don't know, maybe you, for example, measure the temperature, but with extremely high resolution, and you look at the last digit, you know, for example, you measure temperature with 0.0001 precision, and of course it will be, you know, oscillating all the time. Um, because of noise, for example. Noise is often used to create random number streams. And, you know, you take the last bit, it's, you know, because of noise, it's changing all the time, and you just write it down. And you get a one-time pad, which is a random stream of ones and zeros. I don't know, I'll just write it. Let's say we take a coin, or we take some sampling of extreme resolution, and we just start creating these ones and zeros. I take a coin, I flip it, it's heads, I write one. I flip it once more, it's heads again, I write one. I flip it again, it says tails, 0. I flip it again, it's tails, tails, heads, tails, heads, 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 tails, tails, heads, tails, and so on. So this way, you would agree with me that we can actually create random stream of ones and zeros. And actually, there's a website which you can use to generate random numbers. Of course, maybe the network, maybe this website is actually compromised, you don't know, but theoretically, random number generating website. So random.org, blah, 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 accept all cookies, true random number generator. And you can go on this website and it will just generate random numbers in your range, or you can use, actually there are also other tools which generate larger numbers. So, you know, you can go online, create random numbers, or you can do it by flipping coins. Okay, but so I created this truly random one-time pad. I take, I make a copy of it. I put it in a secret special box, which I lock, and then I take this one-time pad to another party that I want to talk to. So this is, for example, one-time pad of Alice. And then she sends it with an airplane to Bob, for example. And later we will look at how we could create these things without sending them. But Alice creates one-time pad, sends to Bob. Bob receives it. And now when Alice wants to send some messages, she can create her secret message. For example, her message is like this. So it means that she has used some part of her one-time pad, and then what she does is she XORs these numbers. She does XOR and deletes the front of the one-time pad so it's not used ever again. And also it needs to be destroyed so that hackers, if they obtain this part, they can also decipher older messages which they can record. So Alice does XOR on her message. This is the plain text. I'll just write it. So this is plain text. She does XOR on her plain text with this one-time pad. And let's analyze what happens. So 1 XOR 1 is 0. So because in one-time pad there is bit 1, this bit is flipped. Here is 1, so the bit is flipped. 0, so bit is written the same way. 0 bit is written in the same way. 0 means bit is copied. 1 means it's flipped to the opposite. 0 and 1. It's written the same way. It's flipped. It's flipped, written in the same way. 0 XOR 1 is 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, and 1. And this is the ciphertext. Okay, so she takes this ciphertext and sends it to Bob. Actually, I could write it in a more beautiful way, you know, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1. And XOR has this wonderful property that it doesn't matter in what order you perform the XOR. So let's look at our picture again, right here. So A XOR B is, for example, C, but there's this property that if you look back, B XOR output, for example, 1 XOR 1 is 0, 0 XOR 1 is 1, 0 XOR 0 is 0, 1 XOR 0 is 1. So actually XOR works in all three ways. You can take A XOR B, you get C. You take C XOR B, you get back A. You take C XOR A, you get back B. So it works in all three ways. You can change these inputs in their positions, but they still work. So when Bob receives the ciphertext, he just uses his one-time pad and he XORs his ciphertext with his one-time pad, and he will get the original message back. Let's check it out. So he receives ciphertext like this. The one-time pad is this, so he just XORs it. 0 XOR 1 is 1. Here will be 0. Here will be 0 again. 1, 1, 0. 1, 0, 1, 1, 0. 1, 1, 0. 1, 1, 0, 1. Let's check out. Is it the same as this message? I don't know. Maybe not. Okay, I didn't lie to you. So the message is retrieved. And now what Alice and Bob should do is destroy this part of one-time pad, which was used to generate the ciphertext. That is really probably the most important part. So this is cryptography. You know, this is the basis of all of the cryptography. Now let's look at some important properties when we're doing XOR. I'll just write down that this one-time pad is random ones and zeros. Let's talk about the following properties of random ones and zeros. Random ones and zeros means that probability of each of these bits to be 1 or 0 is 50%. So I'll just write it down. Probability of each bit in one time pad bang 1 is 50%, and being 0 is also 50%. Okay. So that means random. Probability of each bit in one-time pad being 1 is 50%, and being 0 is also 50%. But what does it mean when we take our plain text? Since each bit in one-time pad has a 50% chance of being 1 and 50% chance of not being 1, it means that each bit in plain text has a 50% chance 50% chance to be flipped and 50% chance to not be flipped to the opposite position. And so, since each of these bits has a 50% chance to be or not to be changed, it basically mimics the randomness of the one-time pad. Because, I don't know, let's say we have this plain text message, right? If I have a 50% chance of flipping each of the bits, it means that a hacker has only 50% chance of guessing correctly the bit, but also 50% chance to guess it wrongly, which means that when the hacker receives the ciphertext, he has no chance to decode it correctly without the key, because there's a 50% chance that he's going to guess wrong every bit, right? So actually, if we have one bit, let's say, I don't know, let's give you an example. Let's say that Alice sends Bob just one bit, right? Um, so there's a secret message that we don't know, which consists of just one bit. Let's say Alice and Bob have armies and they want to attack Eve, right? So Alice sends, takes one bit, which means attack or not attack. So basically 1 means attack and 0 means do not attack. Alice takes this one bit, encrypts with a one-time pad, and sends out this bit to Bob. And she sends out 1, right? And Bob receives 1, decrypts it with a one-time pad, which has 50% chance of being 0 and 50% chance to being 1. Well, Eve sees 1, but since there's a 50% chance that it is changed and 50% chance that it is not changed, Eve has no idea whether the original message was 1 or 0. So Eve is absolutely clueless uh, about the original message. So just because she has 50% chance of guessing correctly, well, it doesn't give anything, because she could guess it, she could not guess it. So if it's all just guessing, then Eve, it's the same as if Eve didn't receive any message at all, right? So in cryptography, this property that you take random ones and zeros, you take your plain text XOR, and plain text mimics the randomness of one-time pad, is really, really important. Okay, do you understand so far? Do you kind of are able to follow through? You can write in the chat or answer with voice. Okay, so I'll just assume that you understood everything. So one-time pad creates random ones and zeros. You XOR them with plain text, you get ciphertext, because each bit has a 50% chance of being flipped and 50% chance of being not flipped. Then eavesdropper has only pure guessing whether each bit was flipped or not. So it's impossible for eavesdropper to decrypt the message without knowing the one-time pad. And Bob and Alice can talk to each other securely. Okay. So, and this is the property also of encryption algorithms. If you give encryption algorithm a wrong key, the algorithm doesn't explode. Your computer doesn't explode. Nothing sets on fire or breaks or hangs the computer. It's just that if you give a wrong password, the algorithm will work. It will produce some output. It's just that it's going to be a wrong output. It's just going to be a wrong information, because you guessed the bits wrong. So it can tell like totally different thing. Also, properties of this, for example, one-time pad are the following. So the information over the internet is sent in ASCII. So, each byte contains one letter or symbol, alphanumeric symbol, we can find them on the internet, for example, in this ASCII-table.com. And for example, capital letter A is decimal 65. So let's say Alice wants to send letter A to Bob. In reality, she sends it as number 65. Let's write 65 in binary. In binary, it is 0. Oh, I'll just copy it. 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. So this is what she sends out, but before sending, she encrypts it with the next part of one-time pad. So she takes a piece of her one-time pad, she XORs these things together with each other, and so 1 XOR 0, this is 1, next is also 1, next is 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0. So it turns out that this is the ciphertext that she sends out. So this is ciphertext. Let's say that Eve catches this ciphertext and she takes a guess at what the one-time pad is. Let's say she guesses, you know what? I'll just try to, I don't know what the one-time pad is, but I'll just make a guess. And she makes a guess that one-time pad is, for example, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, for example. I don't know, she just guesses. So she XORs the ciphertext with her wrong one-time pad, and what does she get? 1 XOR 1 is 0, 1 XOR 0 is 1, 1 XOR 1 is 0. 0 XOR 0 is 0, 1 XOR 1 is 0, 1 XOR 1 is 0, 1 XOR 1 is 1, 0 XOR 0 is 0. She gets this. Then she goes to ASCII table to find out what letter Alice sent. So she thinks that the stream is 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. Oops. Extra 0. Like this. So 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, which is decimal number 66. She goes to ASCII table at letter 66, which is letter B. So 66 is letter B. So Eve, by using wrong one-time pad, by guessing wrong the last 2 bits, she got the wrong letter. Alice sent letter A, Eve used wrong one-time pad, and she got a wrong letter B, right? So by this, I'm just saying, you know, these algorithms, they don't crash when you use wrong key, they just produce wrong output. So Eve thinks that Alice sent letter A, a letter B, whereas in reality, she sent letter B. Bob has a correct one-time pad, he XORs and he gets the correct result, basically. Okay, so this is about one-time pad. And so there would be a question about how can we generate these random ones and zeros. And actually, in cryptography, look, we cannot really create true random ones and zeros. It's impossible to, well, actually, even if it was possible, it would be useless to create an algorithm where Alice generates true random ones and zeros, because every time she creates them, she would need to send them to Bob. So what we want to do is create this concept where Alice and Bob have a relatively short password that they share. For example, they meet up, they decide the password, and from then on, they will use the password to create random ones and zeros. So since they will be created based on password, they will not be random ones and zeros, but they will use an algorithm which have been developed, which is called pseudo-random generator. So the idea is, and this is how modern encryption algorithms work, is the following. So we have Alice and Bob and a public, well-known, uh, and time-proven encryption algorithm, which we'll call pseudo-random generator, but it's not completely random, it's pseudo-random because you need to know the password as the beginning of this pseudo-random generator. So Alice and Bob both use pseudo-random generator, PRG, and as input, this pseudo-random generator requires a key. So, um, so pseudo-random algorithm basically is some kind of encryption algorithm. And Bob um, also has the key. He also uses the same algorithm. So when Alice and Bob both turn their pseudo-random generators on, since they have the same key, the generator will start to produce equal string of ones and zeros. 1 0 1 1 0 in like this. So, you know, it has some kind of switch or some input where Alice says, pseudo-random generator, please generate me 1000 random bits. And pseudo-random generator creates these bits. And since Bob told the same key, this pseudo-random generator on Bob's side creates the same stream of ones and zeros. They are equal. So when Alice wants to send a message, which is, for example, hey, attack Eve tonight, you know, encryption was, you know, invented for war reasons. So this is like a real life example. So she encrypts the message, blah, blah, blah. She sends it to Bob, and since Bob has the same key, he gives it to pseudo-random generator. He XORs the ciphertext with the random numbers that his pseudo-random generator created, and he gets the original message, hey, attack Eve tonight. Right? If you don't like the war theme, I can also give you another example. Maybe you like it better. Hey, here are some of my private pictures. And smiley face. So for example, you are chatting with your wife, you're exchanging some photos that would put you in a bad position if somebody else saw these photos. So Alice can use her pseudo-random generator to encrypt also pictures, you know, because pictures sent digitally is just ones and zeros. So she XORs them with these random numbers. The message becomes like a random ones and zeros stream, blah, 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 that will be encrypted information, and Bob receives it, happy, XORs with the next part of pseudo-random generator um, output, and he retrieves the pictures and is very happy. Okay, so Alice, and now let's talk about Eve. So let's say there is this pervert, Eve, who wants to get those pictures as well, for example, for ransom, because Alice is the president of the country and Bob is her husband. So, you know, it's okay that they are exchanging some pictures with each other. But Eve is a paparazzi journalist and she wants those pictures to earn money, either to blackmail Alice and Bob or maybe to just get popular in the yellow papers. So Eve, she knows the um, algorithm. The algorithm is public, and she reads the picture encryption text. So, you know, she reads the cipher text. But unfortunately, because she doesn't know the key, she cannot see the pictures, right? So the whole key of these secure exchanges that are used in WhatsApp, in Facebook, messaging, everywhere in encryption, they are all based around something that could create some stream of ones and zeros, which looks random, which changes the bits in plain text with approximately 50% chance of being 0 or being 1, and based on the password that is long enough that Eve cannot just, you know, guess the password. So password guessing is called brute force attack. And all encryption algorithms can be broken using brute force attack because, you know, you can just cycle through all possible passwords. For example, a pseudo-random number generator, you know, it has some maximum size of the password. For example, 128 bits, right? So there is a finite number of combinations that you can have in 128 bits. So of course, with pure guessing, once in a million years, Eve can actually guess the password and get the pictures. But this is why these algorithms are constructed in such a way that key needs to be long enough that it's, you know, it would take millions of years for all computers in the world today and in the future to cycle through all possible keys and to brute force guess them, right? And I'll just give you immediately the today's standard of encryption. And it is the following. I will use scientific calculator with big numbers. I hope it works. And let's talk about password length. So um, let's say that the password is 128 bits. It means that it contains 2 to the power of 128 different combinations. How much is it? I just hit here and it says 3.4 times 10 to the power of 38. So it's 3 and then 38 zeros. So the number of combinations is extreme. It's really high. However, you need to remember that processors run on, for example, 3 billion instructions per second, and modern computers have 4 cores, 8 cores, 18 cores. So they actually can run several password tries in parallel, right? So, we need to kind of try to evaluate, is it a lot or is it not a lot? Um, and computer viruses do this thing that they infect people's computers, and they don't really want to steal your desktop or something like that. They oftentimes just use your computer as a source to try out a set of passwords on some user accounts, for example. So you can become a helper in figuring out one of these combinations. So let's look at it in the perspective. Okay, like this. Let's say we arrange 1 million computers. We infect 1 million computers to guess the password, or we create some kind of computer farm, or actually microcontroller farm. These small microcontrollers, they also can do encryption. They have encryption accelerators inside usually. So we build the farm with 1 million microcontrollers to guess the password. So I divide this number by 1 million, for example. Okay, next, each of these microcontrollers, I just know one example. So there is this microcontroller from Silicon Labs, which can run at 48 megahertz, and it needs 56 clock cycles to do one advanced encryption standard try, one encryption. So let's say it basically gets us to 1 million tries per second. Let's say we overclock it a little bit, and so it takes 1 microsecond to test one password. So I just divide it with 1 million again. 1 million. Okay. So this is how many seconds we would need to cycle through all of the possible combinations with 1 million computers, and each computer trying one password in in 1 microsecond, right? So 1 million passwords per second. Now, these are seconds. We need to divide them with 60 to get minutes. We divide them with 60 to get hours. We divide them with 24 hours per day. And then we divide them with 365 days per year. And we get that to use 1 million computers with 1 million tries per second per computer, we need this many years to cycle through all 128 bit password combinations. Okay, so I don't know how much is it. It is so 1,000, 1 million, 1 billion, 1 trillion, 1 quadrillion. I don't even know the names of these big numbers, but generally this is extremely big number. Those who believe in that universe was not created by God, but it's all physics, they think that this number is bigger than the age of the universe. And they say the universe will cease to exist by the time that these all combinations will be tried. So generally today 128 bits is considered a strong password. Okay. And this is actually the size that is used in algorithm called AES 128, which is built into very many computers and microcontrollers because it's so strong. It's just built in, so you can do these fast encryptions, decryptions, much faster than if you had to do them by some code. But there is this magic thing called quantum computers, which are expected to be approximately a very big number times faster. So to make the encryption future-proof against quantum computers, if you need a very strong encryption, you can use AES 256. So AES 256 has 2 times bigger password. So you have like gajillion times more combinations to try out. Doubling the size of the password does not double the time. It actually increases it much more. So let's do the same math on 256. 2 to the power of 256 is e to the power 77. So previously it was 38, now it's 77. So actually adding 1 bit doubles the time, adding 2 bits quadruples the time, adding 3 bits increases time 8 times. So adding bits grows this thing exponentially. So, 256-bit password is not 2 times stronger than 128 bits. It is actually 128 bit times stronger than 128 bits. So actually it is like really, really much, much stronger. So, if you need like something like top level security, NASA style, or Pentagon, or, government secrets, you can use AES 256 and you can be safe that nobody will ever, ever, ever be able to decode your messages unless they steal the key, or maybe they torture you and then you tell the password. But otherwise, without stealing the password from you, using 128 bits is almost impossible. It's impossible today. Maybe it will be possible after 100 years, but using AES 256, it is absolutely impossible to decrypt the messages without the key. Okay. So now this is the size of the key. There are older algorithms, like for example, DES was a good algorithm, but it has only 64-bit keys. Let's run the same analysis on 64 bits. Maybe you think that 64 bits is a big number. Let's just check it out. 2 to the power of 64 is this. 1 million computers, 1 million tries per second, divide them by 60 seconds per minute, divided by 60 minutes per hour, divided by 24 hours. And you see that you can brute forcefully guess DES contents in just 213 days. And trust me, foreign governments, secret services, and hackers have 230 days to get your pictures and to compromise you and to get you under their control. They can wait 300 days. It's not a big problem for them. So they can wait 400 days, if they can get all of your personal information and credit cards and everything. So 64-bit keys are possible to guess with modern computers and with distributed networks. So this is actually the reason why DES is not used anymore. It was popular. It's just maybe there are some very old systems that are still using them. So maybe you come across this DES and you're thinking, wow, what is it? Well, it's a very good old encryption algorithm developed in the time when only few people had computers, where you didn't even have 1 million computers in the world, and they were really slow. So DES was good for its time, but today it's not safe anymore. Okay, so now we need to look at this pseudo-random generator algorithm. So how do we create these random ones and zeros? We give some initial input so that these both pseudo-random generators are synchronized, which is the key, the password, and they start to generate these ones and zeros. But how do they do that? Let's check it out. And actually, there are several algorithms. Pseudo-random number generator. Blah, blah, blah. Generator. Okay, let's see. Pseudo-number, random number generators, stream ciphers. Here is some, for example, algorithm by John von Neumann, who was actually a very important person in development of computers. And here the description of the first very simple pseudo-random number generator algorithm. Take any number, square it, remove the middle digits of the resulting number as the random number. Then use that number as the seed for the next iteration. For example, squaring number 111 yields this. Then you take the middle numbers, for example, 4 digits, and you get 2343 as the random number, and you can square this, take the middle part, use it as the random number, and so on and so on, and you can do it forever. So the password, the key to this algorithm, is the initial numbers. So this is a very good example just to understand how this thing works, how we could use them. Let's say we pick number 5588, we square it, we get this number. We take, for example, middle two, we should expand it to 8 symbols, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we take the middle part, for example, 2, 2, 5, 7, right? And then we use that as our part of random number. We XOR our plain text with it. And then to get the next chunk of random number, we take 2, 2, 5, 7, square it, and again take the middle 4 bits for numbers, and we just repeat it all the time. So if Eve thinks that the beginning, the initial key, the seed, or the password was, for example, 6699, well, she multiplies and she gets a wrong result, and she will get the wrong ciphertext. Okay. So here's also, of course, the explanation, that some of the sequences start to cycle. So some of these seeds are actually periodic. You do it 3 times and it starts to repeat itself. And some also go to 0, 0. And if it's 0, then you square it infinitely and it will always give 0. So it like stops. But the principle, is very good. And you can just keep it in mind as an example. Uh, if we want to analyze such algorithm, then we need to look at several things. And actually, I can just tell you how these pseudo-random number generators are tested. So the first thing is test for 50% ones and 50% zeros. And you cannot even imagine how important it is. So, we would just take a algorithm. We would run it, for example, for 1 hour. We would have, for example, several gigabytes of, um, uh, you, for example, have 5 gigabytes of output, and then you just run some algorithm that counts number of ones and zeros. And the number should be almost equal to 50%. Even something like 49.9% versus 49.9 versus 50 point 50.1 is bad because it gives too much information to the hacker. Because unfortunately, there are some algorithms uh, where basically if you guess one letter correctly, you can start to kind of unfold the entire message backwards. So 49 to 51 is too bad. It needs to be even closer. It should be something like 49.99999, maybe should be like the limit. So this needs to be really 50-50. And the second test, well, guess what? Did you notice that when I generated ones and zeros by hand, human caused ones and zeros have a very high variability because human mind thinks that random means changing, whereas a truly random sequence can have 5 or 7 ones in a row, not a big deal. Actually, if we think from the opposite side, what is the probability that ones and zeros change that rapidly at random situations? You know, so actually, these tests start to run in the following way. They count how many pairs of 1 1 versus 1 0 versus 0 1 versus 0 0 appear and should be 25% each, right? Then the next test would be 1 1 1 versus 0 0 0 versus 0 0 1 versus 0 1 0 versus and so on, and should be 12.5% each. If it isn't, for example, even if ones and zeros really are 50% each, you know, uh, if it's all the time just 1 0 1 0, then Eve has a very good chance to accidentally guess the bits. So randomness means that it's not just 50% ones and 50% zeros, but also each pair appears 25%, each 3-bit combination should appear uh, 12.5, each 4-bit combination should appear 6.25%, and so on and so on. I hope you get the idea. So truly random means not just 50% ones and zeros, but that its variability has, some equal distribution. and so on. So I don't know. Okay, so these tests would be made on such generators. There are some algorithms of pseudo-random number generators. I'll just give you the names. I don't remember. I think Blowfish was one, and Cha-Cha 22 or something. I don't exactly remember their names. Down. Does it have any examples here? Well, usually stream ciphers generate pseudo-random number stream. So maybe under stream ciphers, it will give us some examples. Down. So for example, oh, here it is. Fortuna is a cryptographically secure pseudo-random number generator developed by these two scientists in 2003, and you can see it's published in 2003. So everybody can try to run these tests and try to find some correlation between input and output. And for example, if they find this correlation, that it can be used to decipher some parts of the message even without knowing the key. And if somebody would find it, then they would get a money prize, actually, because many times when big companies publish their cryptography algorithms, they also set a bounty to people to try to crack their algorithm. And if they can do it, the companies actually pay some money, for example, $10,000 or something like that. There are also cryptographic competitions where they publish some black box and you need to try to guess what the algorithm is and what the key is. And if you're successful, you get a money prize. Okay, so but I think that this thing is based on block cipher. Let's see. Okay, here's the stream cipher and some good examples. Oh, here are some fish. I think Salsa 20 was popular, and RC4 and some others. So, for example, RC4 was used widely as a stream cipher, but as you can see, it had some vulnerabilities. Unfortunately, it is being announced insecure, for example. This is how these encryption algorithms actually live. So anyway, you give it a key, and this algorithm just produces you random ones and zeros. Okay, maybe it's enough for today. I hope you understood something. You know, for example, XOR is the key of all encryption. XOR copies the randomness of the one-time pad over the plain text such that the cipher text is, it looks like random ones and zeros, um, because each bit has 50% chance of being flipped or not being flipped. Keys need to be 128 bits or more. The algorithm should be used something that is public and something that has been tried to be broken and was not broken yet. So yeah, I guess we will continue studying more in depth about encryption algorithms next lesson. And by the way, yeah,